The Cognition, Development and Education, or CODE Lab at Queen Mary University London is a multidisciplinary team led by Dr. Margherita Malanchini. They investigate why we differ so widely in our abilities to learn, reason, plan, and solve problems. The lab has recently been awarded funding to understand how developmental neurological conditions like ADHD co-occur with disruptive behavioral conditions, such as conduct problems in young people, and how these impact educational outcomes. I'm meeting Dr. Malanchini to find out more. Okay, so I talk to a lot of parents, and a lot of them have neurodiverse children, and they always say that they suspect their child has more than one neurodiverse condition.
So we know that the co-occurrence between conditions is more the rule rather than the exception. However, we don't really know how neurodevelopmental difficulties are manifested with behavioral difficulties, which is useful because behavioral difficulties are often the symptoms that are picked up first.
These conditions have a big impact on how young people learn. The number of children and adolescents with special education needs has more than doubled since 2014. But educational outcomes for children with special needs have not improved in over a decade, and neither have overall satisfaction of families, despite major governmental investments.
We wanted to see to what extent these different disorders are related, both at the observed level, so how many symptoms are manifested together, but also at the level of genetic risk. And what we found was that actually very few studies had looked at this. So we don't understand a lot about how these different conditions of youth co-occur. And we are now exploring the co-occurrence between neurodevelopmental and disruptive behavior conditions and their impact on learning.
To get to the heart of this critical issue, the research is structured into 3 phases. PhD student Sophie Sansom is involved with the first part, building a better understanding of the relationship between developmental neurological and disruptive behavioral conditions. Dr. Malanchini told us that there are these gaps that need to be filled right now with other conditions. How are we going to do that?
So our first goal is to understand how often different neurodevelopmental and behavioural conditions occur together across development, so particularly focusing on different conditions that have been previously overlooked. So for neurodevelopmental conditions, this will include symptoms like communication difficulties or motor difficulties, and for disruptive behavioural conditions, we'll be looking at aggression and hyperactivity.
Cool, and how do you measure that stuff?
So to do this, we'll be using clinical diagnoses as well as validated questionnaires that measure symptoms like hyperactivity or aggression.
And how many people are we looking at to do this?
I think roughly 185,000.
With the co-occurrences of developmental neurological and behavioral conditions in children better understood, the project moves into the next phase of research, involving Dr. Musial.
Our second goal is to investigate the impact that experiencing symptoms of multiple neurodevelopmental and disruptive behavior conditions has on educational outcomes in children and teenagers, because these disorders are associated with a specific set of challenges for these children, and also looking into this dynamic relationship between neurodiversity and education across development.
Underpinning these outcomes are environmental and genetic risk factors for developing the various neurological and behavioral conditions. Dr. Engin Kesser investigates these risk factors in phase 3 of the research project.
Our next goal in this project is to understand how genetic risk that is shared across different developmental conditions works together with environmental experiences to lead to differences in educational outcomes.
This interplay between an individual's genetics and their environment means that whilst you can't change the genetics, you can adjust the environment and bring about better educational outcomes. And that idea is central to this research. It sounds like an absolutely massive project. What are the overarching goals?
We have 2 overarching goals. The first goal is to provide clinicians and educators with complete knowledge of how all of the different neurodevelopmental and disruptive behavior conditions co-occur, when they do, or their development, and how this co-occurrence is manifested at the level of symptoms. And then the second and potentially more impactful goal is to pinpoint environmental targets for interventions that work in interplay with genetic risk and lead to different educational outcomes so that we can support, best support children that are at genetic risk for multiple conditions in their learning.
Sounds amazing. I can't wait to see what the results are going to be.
Oh, thank you.